Hello world, hello Facebook, hello all those watching this on listenvisionlive.com. It's the Nitty Gritty Show. It's your boy Jay DeCosta.
It's your girl Katniss.
And together we are the Nitty Gritty.
It's Tim Wise. You're watching the Nitty Gritty Show.
Everybody, this is Stephen Powell. You're now watching the Nitty Gritty Show. Check it out.
And so I'm DeCosta, and you need to watch the Nitty Gritty Show.
My name is Sherman Moss, and you're watching the Nitty Gritty Show.
That's the Grant Thompson, aka G. Ainsworth, and you're watching the Nitty Gritty Show.
I'm Anthony White, and this is the Nitty Gritty Show.
Yeah. Bam, it's Jay Thompson. You're watching the Nitty Gritty Show.
You are watching the Nitty Gritty Show.
My name is Jay Grant Thompson, and guess what? You're in tune to the Nitty Gritty Show.
I'm Will Jawando, and you're watching the Nitty Gritty Show.
And my name is Mitch Holmes, and you're watching the Nitty Gritty Show.
My name is Peter DeCosta, and you're watching the Nitty Gritty Show.
This is Pastor Rob, and you're on the Nitty Gritty Show.
I'm Ray Pittman, and you're watching the Nitty Gritty Show.
Hey, this is Joni Ford of Ford Wilderness, and you're watching the Nitty Gritty Show.
Yo, what's going on? It's your boy Benny Black, and you are watching the Nitty Gritty Show.
It's time for the Nitty Gritty. Conversations getting real live. It's time for the Nitty Gritty. The revolution's not televised. It's time for the Nitty Gritty. Reaching out to your conscious mind. It's time for the Nitty Gritty. More than talking, we're taking action. It's time for the Nitty Gritty.
So what's going on world? What's going on Facebook? Everybody catching us on our YouTube channel and soon to be DC TV. I guess I'll throw it out there. It's your boy Jay DeCosta.
And it is your girl Katniss.
And together we are
The
the
Nitty
Nitty Gritty. Look, we're here today because we got a chance to meet with Kelly Fox. As you know, he's running for the 43rd seat for a state delegate out there in Baltimore. So I was really excited to sit down with him again. He's been on the show previously. And we had a chance to go down to his campaign headquarters, right?
I know, and it was a really dope experience because, you know, some of the people there were telling us about reasons why we should vote for Kelly Fox and some of the hardship that Baltimore has had. And if anybody's seen The Wire,
Man, yeah.
you know Baltimore has had some issues, but he seems like a genuinely honest, sincere, God-fearing man, and I really feel like he's going to be great for Baltimore. He's going to do the right thing.
Yeah, and you know, it's funny because you mentioned The Wire, and you know, so many people from Baltimore are like, oh God, don't mention The Wire again. But one thing about Kelly, we kind of talked about this off air, he's fine with it. And then even our conversation on air, we kind of hit on those main pillars that The Wire deal with. We talked about drugs, we talked about homelessness, we talked about job opportunities, we talked about education.
We did.
Right? And making the city of Baltimore more desirable to new business. I mean, that's talked about in season 2, you know, when they have to... See, I know my Wire history, right?
But we wanted to make sure that we asked the right questions because a lot of times people say voting doesn't work. And I feel like it's because people are just not knowledgeable about reasons why you need to vote. So here is the show. We hope you guys enjoy it. And we'll be back at you in a sec.
Well, number one, he has a very good vision, and I support any candidate that has a good vision and moving forward because there are a lot of problems in Maryland, and I believe he's one that can fix it.
Yeah, so I am functioning as the campaign manager for the campaign to elect Kelly Fox. So I do a lot of the different things. So everything from strategy to organizing to a lot of the online efforts. It's kind of a utility position.
Well, like other candidates that I've seen, he's a candidate for everyone. The young, the seniors, the middle class, the rich. He's a candidate for everybody. White, black, Korean, doesn't matter. So he's out talking to everyone, supporting everyone, listening to everyone. You have an issue, you call Kelly Fox.
So Kelly Fox represents the hope that a lot of people, and potentially a lot of people, see in the city. And so when you're in a city that is overwhelmingly one way as far as from a political standpoint and has done things a certain way for so long, and you see a breath of fresh air come along, that's what you want to see, and that's in someone who's going to go down to Annapolis and represent not just the district but the city and the future that the city would like to strive towards.
All right, so we're here with Kelly Fox, Fearless in the 43rd. We had you on the show before, so happy to come out here to your office.
Welcome to Baltimore.
Yeah, right here at your headquarters
Yes.
here. So thank you for being on the show again, sir.
Absolutely. Thank you.
So, for those, this might be their first time meeting you.
Okay.
And, we want the people to know about, briefly about your story, being raised in the 43rd, educated in the 43rd, working in the 43rd.
Okay.
So if you could just tell the people a little bit about yourself and why running for the House of Delegates is so important for you and your connection to this area.
Okay. So I was born and raised here in the 43rd District, having gone to Northern High School, Morgan State University. And if anybody knows anything about Northern High School in Baltimore City, that's sort of like the East Side High of Baltimore City, if you remember that movie. And I learned a lot and I saw a lot growing up. And I always had a passion to empower people, given my background in the community. As I matriculated through college, I was a poli-sci major, and I planned to go to law school. But community activism was just something that was in my blood. And so I began to kind of community organize. I saw issues within the community that I wanted to kind of challenge, from kids needing to be mentored to fighting for small business in our community to just mobilizing people. And so I always tell people that I mentor, I'm a pastor, by the way, 9 to 5 I'm a business banker, and I used to be a youth and family therapist specializing in addictions. So when I mentor people, I tell them when God opens up a door for you, you got to be man enough to step up, walk through the door, and lead from the front. And so that's why I'm actually doing this. It's not because of a title, not because I'm going to Annapolis for some sort of power, but I want to be a tangible example to people that if you trust God and are faithful to God, that He'll do exactly what He said He's going to do, and He'll put you in place to open up doors and bring blessings to people. And so that's why I'm doing this. I'm passionate about it, and I hope that the people of the 43rd are just as passionate about it.
We'll definitely appreciate that, like having someone that's from the area and to grow up and never have to leave your community. You hear a lot of people say, you got to leave the community to give back to it. But you didn't have to do that. You was able to stay in it and fight for it while you're here. There's a lot of issues that affect Baltimore as a whole. And, one of them that's always brought up, and shows like The Wire has that pushed that agenda forward. But, crime is a thing. What are some of your things that you hope to influence or change about maybe how we go about policing people in the 43rd or just Baltimore in general?
Yeah, I just had a conversation with some officers maybe 10 minutes ago at the community festival outside. And we put too much on the backs of our police department, right? We've got to, as leaders, begin to deal with the root cause of the issues, the things that cause crime, like the opioid and drug epidemic, right? We got to fund programs that are wraparound services so that we can habilitate people and make them healthy, right? We're dealing with drugs from a criminal perspective when it's a health issue, right? We got to deal with mental illness, right? People are sick and ill, and they don't know that there are services out here that will treat the things that they don't even know is going on mentally with them, right? Mm-hmm. And a lot of times when people are going through issues and they're not, they don't have the correct information, they'll do what's called they'll use drugs to sort of self-medicate, right? And so we gotta show people that there are other ways to deal with this mental illness issue. The other thing is we gotta create jobs for people, right? Gainful employment. So if you're dealing with mental illness, you're dealing with the drug epidemic, you're creating jobs for people, crime's going to go down because people are not going to be as desperate as they are right now, right? So we're not going to police our way out of this crime issue. We've got to deal with the root cause, and I don't think we're dealing with the root cause right now. I think that politicians, and you might grin at me and say you're a politician, but I'm not. I think politicians, want to put Band-Aids on things, and community activists and grassroots people understand that we got to fix it for the long term for our children and our grandchildren. So. That's why I'm running. Is I want to fix things for people, and I only want to do it for 2 terms, right? I'm actually mentoring and grooming a young lady by the name of Angie Winder. She's running for State Central Committee, right? Which is sort of
the grassroots or the pulse of the community. It's an unpaid position, volunteer position, but I want to groom her to take over later on, because we can't stay stuck in positions and become stale and doing the same old things. We got to groom people and bring new energy and new ideas. And so that's just my perspective on how we grow not only the 43rd District, but Baltimore as a whole.
I like that, having a plan for a succession.
Absolutely.
Even before in the role. And I think more of our politicians or our civil servants should think about that. I think how folks get into the rut of just running for office and finding ways to hold on to office and, you know, strive for power is they don't have a plan for succession. They never did see the end goal in mind. I appreciate that from you.
A lot of them, I think, do see the end game, right? But there's a lot of insecurity in politics, right? And so if I begin to groom someone and empower someone, perhaps they might want my position later, right? And so we gotta start electing people who are secure enough to understand that what's for me is for me. Nobody can take what's for me away, and start to groom and empower people. That's why the civil rights movement collapsed, right? Is that we didn't have a succession plan, right? And so we've got to no matter what, put things in place so that when we make promises, no matter whether I'm in the office or not, that those promises come to fruition.
And was there a particular event or situation that presented itself that made you aware of your calling to this? Because it's not like you go to bed at night and say, I know for sure I want to be a politician. Yeah. I mean, maybe that was the case for you, but what situation or what event happened that kind of made you realize this is a calling for me and I really need to pursue it?
So there are a couple different ones. I remember being in elementary school, and my elementary school was an all-black elementary school. And I remember we had one white kid in school, and his father came to pick him up from school, and some of the other dads were picking on him. And I remember watching them beat him up in front of the school. And I didn't know this dad. I didn't even know the white student, but I remember crying as I went home because I felt so bad that this man who had been singled out because he was different was being beaten. And I've always sort of had a passion for people. I was homeless at a point in my life. I've been counted out before. To look at me, you couldn't tell that I'm dyslexic, and that that I've always had to work harder and always have been underestimated. And so when you come from those experiences, you have a natural built-in passion to make sure that nobody ever has to go through what you went through. And to also show them that you can overcome anything with God. You can overcome anything. You can be a banker. You can be vice president of your bank as I am. You can be a community leader. You can be a pastor as I am. You can found a church as I did with not much but belief and trust in God. So I've got to be that tangible example to those people out in the community.
Wow, that's powerful. I didn't know that about you until today about the dyslexia.
Yeah, most people tell me not to say that, but one of the things I say in my daily devotional on Facebook is always be authentic. And so we got to be real with people. Our testimony is what's going to empower and move people forward. It's not for us to keep to ourselves.
But I think it's important that people, when they look at their leaders, they're people that they could touch, people that they could relate to, and that's what I see every time I speak with you. Is someone who's relatable and someone who can actually touch the people.
God be the glory.
So, wow, and that's touching. And then, so I guess that might have had a struggle with education.
Go ahead.
And education is a big deal right here in the city of Baltimore right now. Baltimore has been through a lot when it comes to education. Now that you've been kind of campaigning here for a while, you've had a chance to touch various facets of the city, even more so now. What are some of your thoughts on the education in Baltimore, and maybe some ideas about fixing, because you're all about fixing, not putting on Band-Aids, trying to fix the education situation here in Baltimore?
So one of the big things in the state of Maryland is funding for education. The Kerwin Commission is what we're dealing with, right? And the correct formula around how we distribute this money to the different jurisdictions in the state, right? So our governor would tell you that the city of Baltimore is the second highest funded jurisdiction in the state. But our kids actually deal with a whole lot more issues than their counterparts out in the surrounding counties, right? They're dealing with post-traumatic stress syndrome. They're dealing. We got to feed every one of our kids. We got to give them free lunches in Baltimore City because the socioeconomic environment is not such that most of our kids can afford it, right? So we got to do we got to do so many foundational things to get our kids in position to be able to receive the education they get. But I won't stop there. Funding is a huge issue, right? But the real issue, the thing that's going to scholastically move our kids forward, is parental involvement. As I was growing up, my mother, I was a latchkey kid. My mother was a single parent. She was gone before I woke up in the morning, and many times I was half asleep when she got home at night, right? And she couldn't be engaged in my academic process. She couldn't be engaged in the schools that I was a part of, right? And so that left, if she wasn't engaged and if she couldn't be engaged, the importance of education, I didn't really receive it, right? And she couldn't follow through on or follow up on what I was doing when I got home. And so I think there are a lot of parents who want to be engaged in their children's schools, but because they have these 9-to-5 jobs that don't let them go to school without being penalized, there's a disconnect there. And so what I want to do is legislate in the state of Maryland, and I don't know if I'm going to win this fight, but I will fight it, is that every parent who has a child in school, if they're employed in the state of Maryland, will get a certain amount of hours per month off leave time so that they can go and engage those schools without being penalized. I'm not saying that they should get paid, but they should not be penalized for taking that time off to engage their children's school. That's going to go a long way in our crime issues here in Baltimore City, right? We've got big corporations in Baltimore City that's telling us that our children and the people in Baltimore are not employable. So they're going outside of the city and employing people, right? And so we've got to put ourselves in position that nobody could ever say that the people in Baltimore City are not employable, right? And that goes to another issue, right? Business, right? Small business is the backbone of the national economy, right? And so we're giving major tips and tax breaks to these large corporations that are telling us that our people are not employable. So they're not pouring anything back, right? So what we need to do is start being as supportive to small business as we are to large businesses. And because small businesses are stakeholders in our community, many times from the community, they employ people in the community, and they give back so much. So we've got to start taking care of small business, creating jobs through small business, and that's going to go a long way in moving our city forward as well.
Yeah. Now, I have a question for you. I'm not sure if you've heard it or you've watched Kanye West make the comment about, black folks being in slavery, it was a choice. And then it kind of spun out of control to a larger conversation that black folks innately, for whatever reason, vote Democrat, although the Democratic Party has not held up their end of the bargain as far as making rights for black people. And I know that you are running as a Democrat. Did you want to speak on that as to what the Democratic Party can do, and maybe even why we innately vote Democrat, but we don't necessarily know why we're voting or what we're voting for, or what we should hold them accountable for?
It's an issue of the Hatfields and McCoys, right? Our grandparents and great-grandparents were Democrats, so we are Democrats. And I do think that the Democratic Party has let down its party. I think that, playing politics has sometimes crippled our party. But the beauty of this election season is that I'm a staunch Democrat. We've got a lot of young, new, staunch Democrats who are ready to push against not only the Republican regime, but those Democrats who are acting Republican. And so, we've got to be, one of our themes to this campaign is being fearless in the 43rd. We've got to be fearless enough to speak truth to power, to fight against those who don't mean us any good, whether they be black, white, Republican, Democrat, independent. We've got to do what's right and just. And so I think that in this election season, you're seeing some people ready to stand up and really take on what's been holding us back so long.
Wow. And appreciate the answer, by the way. And, when it comes to these elections, and when it comes to, being Republican or Democrat, I think a lot of people just don't understand that how the voting process in America works. They don't understand how important the primaries are. And I think what happens is good candidates don't get enough notice before the primary. So then come the primary, only your hardcore Democrats vote. And therefore you get more of the same, because you get more of the same people voting, not enough new voters participating in that to help shake it up like we need to. If you could just tell our viewers, how important is this primary election? Because before we get to the generals, we have to get past June 26th, correct?
Yes.
How important is that to make sure that the right voices are put on the ballot?
So it's So in the state of Maryland, or in Baltimore City, let me just say in Baltimore City, the primary is everything. If you win the primary, you've won the election. The general is just, just dog and pony show at that point. And there's so much at stake right now. We're talking about, we've got a Republican governor right now who's going to, if he has a second term, he's going to be able to redraw the district lines of the state of Maryland, right? And so we're in a situation where we've got a Republican president with a Republican governor who can redraw lines to suit Republicans and then put the power squarely in the hands of Republicans here in this Democratic state. So it's very important. And I've got to say this as well. We've got a lot of great candidates out here, but unless you're falling in line with and conforming before you get to Annapolis and getting on one of these tickets or getting becoming a part of the clique, you don't have access to the same resources and money and finance that these incumbents do, right? And so what happens is a lot of people will look at the voters list and they will target just those voters because you don't have a whole lot of resources to just target everybody. You need a lot of money to do that. But what we've done in this campaign is we're very selective in how we're going about this campaign. We don't take everyone as volunteers, right? We want people who are passionate about our community, and it's not about position, but understanding that we're doing this from a very organic and spiritual perspective. And also, we're not using voters lists. We're going and we're touching everybody. Now, people would say, that's stupid, that's crazy, you need to target your win. But I believe that everybody matters. One of the hallmarks of this campaign is everybody matters. And I've got to prove that not just in Annapolis, but I got to prove it before I get to Annapolis. I got to show and prove that I'm about what I say I'm about. And so we're not taking any list on the streets with us. When I walked in here, you saw me with literature in my hand and no list. We're touching everybody. We're registering voters. We're making people understand that it is important to be a part of the process, because if you're not at the table, you're going to get overlooked. And so we need every leg and every person and every able-bodied person to stand up and say, enough's enough. We got to fix the problems in Baltimore City and the state of Maryland, and we're willing to sacrifice something of ourselves to do that.
Are there any statistics out there showing how many people we need to get registered to vote? I know the percentages vary. I think on the national level, maybe 20% of voters actually participate in the primary and in voting time for that. And I'm pretty sure the numbers are probably similar in Baltimore. But it's really important, I guess, to bring in those added voices that you're looking for, because the more people that get involved, as you said, that's what's going to make a difference, to be heard.
Yeah, and people are so apathetic because they feel like they're being ignored. Mm-hmm. And the way you continue to be ignored is allow what's been happening to continue to happen, right? We've got to start to choose our own leaders. We got to grow them ourselves. We can't continue to allow the political powers that be to tell us who's the best candidate or who should be our leader. We got to pick them right out of the street. You've been in our community, you've been working. Let me tell you something. I met with a lady yesterday, and I'll show you the video later, Ms. Russell, who has been in our community for 50 years, cleaning her neighborhood up, feeding people at Project Place, loving people, hugging people every day. Those are the kind of people we need to be pushing forth to be our leaders in City Hall and the State House. But she doesn't believe and doesn't know that we can do that because we've never done it. She's never seen it done before. But if we get behind her, that sincere, genuine love and leadership will change this whole city. That's what we got to start doing.
And in addition to that, how important is educating people on the know of how politics work, right? Because I'm sure people probably don't know they can vote on their sheriff, they can vote on their streets, they can vote on their school system. So I guess with your campaign, how are you able to not only get people registered to vote, but educating them on why voting is important, and once they do vote, and if you're elected, how things work? Because there's a process for everything. Mm-hmm. And then maybe the reason why she's fearful is because she just doesn't know and she's not educated.
Yeah, that's very true. And so we got to stop having microwave conversations and being microwave politicians, right? A handshake's not enough. Yesterday, I was up in the Evesham community right up on York Road, and I saw about 10 residents. And I probably was supposed to see about 30 residents. But the last resident I saw wanted to sit down on her porch and have a conversation about how we fix not the 43rd district, but downtown, the west part of Baltimore. She wanted to have a granular conversation about how this thing works. And we got to be serious enough and real enough to say, you know what, this is worth it, and sit down and have those conversations. The other thing is I believe, and this might be a little radical, but I believe there's a philosophy out here, if we keep them ignorant, we can do whatever we want to them.
Exactly.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, again, we've got to be secure enough to empower people and grow people and teach people how this thing works. You know, we got to stop being predators and taking advantage of people. And that's what I see largely that we have, a bunch of predators. You know, they may get there with the right intent, but when they get there and how they get there determines how they interact when they get there. I'll give you an example. Maybe I'm talking too much.
No. This is your time.
I found out recently that a young lady who is my opponent joined an incumbent ticket. And she joined this campaign, or joined the campaign because she said that it was time for change. She was mad about how the system was working. She was in a debate and stood up and got a tremendous applause because she said, I'm mad about how things are going. And then she went right and joined the incumbent ticket, which is the easy way to go into Annapolis, right? So she's already been bought and sold before she's gotten there. Wow. And I shouldn't have said that, and I'm getting in trouble for saying it, but it's the truth. Our residents and our constituents need to begin to watch people's behavior. Stop listening to what they're saying and watch what they're doing. If they can be bought before the election, then they're definitely going to be bought when they get to Annapolis.
And that's how you get more of the same.
Yeah, absolutely. She's got to conform now. She's already owned.
But there's something to be said that when we look back at history, we did know how politics works. We were there voting. We were there studying. So somewhere down the line, something happened where people became ignorant because it was a standard back then to spread information in the community.
You know why? We had a common ground. Back then, you're talking about the 60s, and that was when we had the working class poor African Americans, when there was segregation, right? So that African Americans, whether you were a doctor, lawyer, trash man, teacher, or Johnny come lately, everybody lived in the same community, right? And so those things were tangible. We had a common ground, right? And so that we could relate to one another. And it was real that you could advance and move and be empowered. Now, because we've got rich African Americans living, in the ivory tower, and we got poor African Americans living, in the inner cities, and those middle class African Americans living wherever, none of them can relate to each other. There's no more common ground. And so you've divided and conquered what really led us to a successful civil rights movement.
So capitalism, money.
Absolutely.
Interesting.
Absolutely. And let me I say this to my congregation all the time. We're praying for the wrong stuff. We're out here chasing money when we should be chasing our purpose and our divine destiny in life. And if we do that, money, without all the things, the Bible says, seek ye first the kingdom of God and all his righteousness, and all else shall be added unto us. And so because we haven't grasped that philosophy, and we're running after those things that have nothing to do with the kingdom of God or spiritual development, then our city is imploding. People don't have character. They don't have morals and values anymore because we're displacing our focus. If we really want to prosper, we need to chase our faith. We need to chase a God, a power higher than ourselves. That's what's going to get us all the things that God has purposed us and shown us we can have.
Now, I'm happy that finances came up, and I'm happy that you said what you said about, people putting a purpose first and bringing everything together. And then, money is an important conversation, especially when it comes to jobs. There was the black working class. We've talked about this on the Nitty Gritty show before, but the black working class is slowly disintegrating. Mm-hmm. Not slowly, actually rapidly disintegrating. 69% of blacks will be worse off than their parents. Mm-hmm. That's the stat, and that's the way things are going. So we definitely have to do something about jobs, and that's a big issue right here in Baltimore. What are some of the things that you can see yourself trying to help vote on or maybe help legislate to do something about jobs in the Baltimore area? Because I know, how do you make it appealing to some of these factories that want to come here? You hear about them going to Pennsylvania sometimes, or to just right up the road, and it's like you have all this area, you have the pier. How do we look at, or how do you get a voice to help get those jobs here?
All right, so you said, how do we make it appealing for companies to come to Baltimore? We deal with the crime issue, we educate our kids, right? That's going to make it appealing. We're already giving them major TIFs and tax breaks to come here, right? And so that, if we do that, fix the root cause of the issues here in Baltimore, then companies will be happy to come here. Mm-hmm. Second thing is that fair and equal payment for men and women, right? Mm-hmm. Studies show that women make about 20 to 30% less than men. That's appalling. That's appalling. And so what we're doing right now is we're not just disrespecting women, but we're taking opportunity out of the mouths of our babes. We got parents, single parent mothers who are single parents who are making less money, who can't provide opportunities and resources for their children. So we as a state have got to police that. If you don't have a history of fair and equitable payment of your employees, then we as a state need to say you can't come here. And once you get here, we need to have a watchdog committee to make sure that everybody's getting paid the same and equally, right? I believe in $15 minimum wages with a caveat. You got to look at the annual revenues of a company, right? Small business, a lot of these small businesses are on a shoestring, right? And so if they pay their employees $15 an hour, they're going to go out of business and nobody's going to have a job, right? And so if your company is at a certain cap, then we need to negotiate what that minimum wage should be. It shouldn't be a blanket fit. If your company is at another annual revenue cap, then it should be a $15 minimum wage so that people have gainful income and gainful employment here in the state of Maryland. So again, we've got to support small businesses. We've got to give them resources to be sustained here, right? So if we're giving tax breaks and incentives to big corporations, we need to do the same for the backbone of the national economy, which is small business. And so we've got to do those kind of things. Did I answer your question?
I feel you did.
Okay.
And then there's an issue of homelessness here
Yeah.
in Baltimore. And I feel like that probably relates to drugs in some regard in Baltimore. Mm-hmm. But we've met with various groups that are doing a number of works here to work with homelessness in Baltimore. But what are some of your thoughts on it that you feel like?
Drugs are a part of it, but gentrification is another part of it, right? Mm-hmm. And so we got these developers coming in here and running not only young people out of the area and out of their homes, but seniors who have built the foundation of our community, running them out because they can't afford to be there, right? And so that's another thing. I love development. I love to grow, right? I love to be a big metropolitan city. But the thing is we got to support and take care of those people who live here, who are indigenous to this area. And so we got to mandate that developers keep a certain percentage of their development for low-income people, right? So that we can keep people in the city and in their communities living there comfortably. So we've got to block out some property and some space to house people.
Great.
And
at fair rents and leases.
A really quick question: what's the most challenging thing about running your own campaign?
The most challenging thing about running my own campaign. So I am public enemy number one. And when I go into forums, everybody's clicked up, right? So I go into forums, I'm the only independent voice in the room, so everybody's hating on Cal, right? And so, and I love the people who work for me. So a lot of times, if it's raining or if we got stuff to do, I send them out, and I'll go in by myself. But it's not easy. It's not easy fighting everybody by yourself. And so, but nobody said that this journey would be easy. God just said it would be worth it. And so, I think it's a lonely road. It's always somebody shooting a dart at you. So just maintaining a smile and knowing that God has my back. I just continue to press, but it's not easy.
Mm. Well, we hope for your strength and to be strong.
Thank you.
Being able to talk to some of the guys here in the office, it seems like you have a great team of folks around you. I've been able to come to a couple of your events that you've had here as well.
Thank you, man. Thank you so much.
And you do have a lot of great people supporting you. Your frat is definitely got your back.
Phi Beta Sigma.
Yeah.
And I got some good buddies who are alphas as well who've been helping too. So
yeah.
Shout out to my alpha brothers out there too.
And when it comes down to it, as a community, we're all one big family.
Absolutely.
And I think it's important that we have that, and I see that around you. You know, everyone's family. You know, I don't see any big I's or little U's, just a group of family. You know, we're going to wrap up this part of the conversation, but if you had one last thing you can impress upon voters before June 26th, what would you say to them?
This is life or death. This is life or death. Our city is in a crisis. The state of Maryland is in a crisis. Our kids are being murdered in the streets. They're being murdered in our schools. Our kids are hungry. Our seniors, they can't afford medications. They're dying spiritually and physically. And so we need to elect people who are courageous enough to come against the system and say, it's not about me, but what about our children? What about our seniors? Somebody who's courageous enough to stand up and say, we're going to fight this battle. Whether we win or lose, at least we know that there was a fight that took place, right? And so we're dying. It's life or death, and we need everybody who's anybody to get up on June 26th and vote, whether it be for Kelly Fox or whoever else you choose. Get out and vote. Let your voice be heard. Don't stand by and let yourself be murdered.
Man, that last comment.
The comment was ridiculous.
Life or death,
right?
Yeah, I mean, it's real. Like, you know, you don't hear that enough. It was said all the time in the 60s. And, you know, it came up again against the Trump versus Hillary campaign. You know, this is a life or death decision. And a lot of people didn't take it that way. But I'm thinking now, with the climate of what's going on in America, people realize, yo, it is life or death.
It is. And I think that you should know why you want to vote. And even if the candidate doesn't fit your standard or the things that you want perfectly, you still need to vote. Because I feel like some people were like, they were not happy with Hillary and Trump, so they were like, I'm not going to vote at all. You can't do that. We just can't do that as a people anymore.
No, we can't. And we definitely have to be in a place where we're going to go out and be active, vote, do what we have to do. That interview, I mean, we talked about everything from education, crime. We touched on all of it. And he's very passionate about all of it. And that does give me hope that when we participate in the full scale of the election process, you know, there's a primary coming up in June. Not just in Maryland do we have the primaries the 26th, but I believe in Virginia it's like the 12th. DC's around that time. A lot of states, even if it's not a closed primary system, the people that win the primary, like he said earlier, is like the primary a lot of times is just like, you know, just a thing to do the, you know, general election. It's like a dog and pony show. Like, whoever wins that primary, depending where you are, pretty much has it from there. So if you don't participate in the primary, you're not getting the full scale of candidates. You really are. You're missing out. So I think that was big. And of course, we wanted to end on a different note today, right?
We did. So we're going to end with some of the people that were there at the campaign office. When we went to we asked them, you know, why should you vote for Kelly Fox? And they all provided various perspectives as to reasons why he is the perfect candidate. So we hope you enjoy the show, and we're going to leave you with those final thoughts.
Hey, we out. It's the nitty gritty.
I would tell the voters that. So a couple things. He is the people first candidate. So when you say that you're looking for people that are going to be transparent and provide you insight with what's going on down in Annapolis, and also represent you in the way that you want to be represented, that's the type of candidate that you're going to be electing when you vote for Kelly Fox. And the second thing that I would say is to vote. You are voters, and the best way that you can share your voice in this type of process is to actually come out and vote. So I would encourage and implore everyone to come out and make sure that they vote for Kelly Fox.
Vote Kelly Fox.
Hi, I'm Leah. And I'm Corey. And you're watching The Nitty Gritty Show.
My name is Lawrence Sanders, and I'm here on The Nitty Gritty Show.
I'm Sandra.
And I'm Jerome. And we are the Scotts. And you're watching The Nitty Gritty Show.
I'm Dr. Robert J. Patterson, and you're now watching The Nitty Gritty Show.
My name is Chantal Russell, and you're watching The Nitty Gritty Show.
I'm Pastor Kelly Fox, and you're now watching The Nitty Gritty Show.
Hi, I'm Tiffany Smith, and you're watching The Nitty Gritty Show.